Welcome to Tiger Carpenter. This is my new office. I'm sitting at the desk. It's a working desk which I designed myself. I had in mind a minimalist design. So there is no base. There are only two stretchers which are using a sliding dovetail joint, which works about this way. So the top of the table has the sliding dovetail and the stretcher goes under this way. So the stretcher will keep three boards straight or flat over time. The beauty of this design, I believe I'm the first person who has ever done that. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I put the stretcher in before the glue up of the top. This allows me to hide the ends of the stretcher underneath the edge boards. So you won't see the entry to the sliding dovetail in the edge of the tabletop. So I had to separate the three boards to leave gaps for the glue up, and then I applied the glue, and then I squeezed the three boards over the stretcher. So this way the entry for the sliding dovetail for the stretcher is hidden. And how as the wood expands and contracts over the wet and dry seasons, currently we are in the wet season, so the wood is already at the maximum dimension. The end of the stretchers go inside the recess in the legs, or posts rather. You can see that they are 4 inches wide square posts. So the stretcher goes into the recess in the post, and it's glued only on one side. On one side the stretchers are not glued. The stretchers are also not glued to the sliding dovetail, and this allows the stretchers to move as the top expands and contracts. I think it's a proof of concept. Please don't take this as a master class, because I'm also at the very beginning of my woodworking journey, but I believe this idea is very, very pioneering, and I haven't seen any tabletops or working desks designed with this concept. There is one woodworker from Japan called Ishitani, and I know that Ishitani is frequently using the sliding dovetail in his tabletops to keep them straight. However, he leaves the entry on one edge of the tabletop for the stretcher. So once he is done with the glue up of the top, he puts the stretcher in, and then he closes the visible entry with the plug, which is cut precisely to the dimensions of the entry. So my design, I believe, is going one step further than Ishitani furniture, and it's not showing the entry of the stretchers, and I believe this is the very, very cool design. There is no base, and the table is very, very steady. There is no movement whatsoever. It's not wobbly, it's not flimsy, it's solid as a rock. So please watch the whole video if you are curious how I built it, and enjoy. Okay, the job is done. We now have 4 heavy legs that will be supporting our working desk. So let's go ahead and mill the stock. Okay, before you start jointing, always verify your fence. So have a look at this beauty. I'm starting to work on my working desk. For my legs I'll be using these beautiful posts, which are 4 by 4 inch. However, they are 150 or 200 years old, so they are cracked. Even though these posts are 4 by 4 inches, let's see if we need to seal them. So I'm going to tape the bottom. Okay, done. I'm going to do it by hand so that I can save the epoxy, because it's very expensive. That's how it looks like after pouring or dripping the epoxy resin. I'm going to leave it to cure now for 2 days. Okay, so the epoxy was drying for over 24 hours, and I only filled the cracks on 2 sides because now I want to run it through the thickness planer. So I needed 2 flat reference sides. As you can see, the chips are very easy to be cut by the Helical spiral cutter head. There you have it. It looks really good, and even the tiny adjustments now are making a big difference, so I'm going to be very careful. Okay, so now we are perfectly square. So let's take that twisted corners out. Now I'm going to tighten it by hand, to hold the material clamped to the sled. And now we are going to examine which part of the material needs to be supported by the grub screws underneath. Maybe one place needs small adjustment. It's actually quite heavy, the sled and the piece. That's why we have in-feed and out-feed roller table. We got the first material removed. Okay, that looks really beautiful. Just look at the flatness of this board. Even though we use the sled, the board is perfectly flat. And now I'm going to joint these edges on the jointer anyway. Yep. Okay, so these stretchers, I want to be exactly 1.5 inches, and we have 1.6. So let's measure it now. 38.47. So I'm going to leave it here. So the next step is to fill up the holes, such as these. It looks quite nice actually. I didn't want the dowel to look like it was fixing a problem. It's a nice beautiful pattern which is matching Tiger Carpenter logo, so it's like art. Just look at that. This is just beautiful. So now I can fill this sink with epoxy and then it will look like it was meant to be. So now I'm going to fill up the inlay Tiger Carpenter logo, which is like a tiger stripe. I'm using the capillary action of the wooden stick, so I don't have to pour it all over. All right. Okay, the epoxy is dry now. You can see it here. This is it. After cleaning up the epoxy, it's starting to look nice. Tighten it. Okay, it looks very good. The total width of the working desk is 567 millimeters. The stretchers need to be between the mortises. So here is our working desk. Let me measure the length that I ended up with, 1260 mm. Perfect. And the width is 567. And the stretchers need to be 3 inches from each end. That should be fine. Here is our edge. We should have 3 inches here and 3 inches here, exactly. Time to cut the mortises on 4 corners. I prepared the jig and I cut out the opening, which is 2 by 2 inches, and it's a snug fit in both axes. Also, the distance from the wall to the edge is exactly 1 inch. So now, using my jig, I'm going to mark the mortises. So now let's put our magic jig and clamp it. As you noticed, I was going clockwise because we are inside the hole. Okay, so it's flush with the jig. We can remove it now and we can do the second pass, which will go with the full depth. Okay. And the result is really beautiful. So again, I'm going to verify that opening with my machinist blocks. There's no play at all, very snug. And this way the same, perfect. So let's verify the distance from the edge. Okay. Okay, check this out. The mortises are done. Very happy with that. Okay, so now I need to raise the bit to 1/8 of an inch, and that will be our final depth of the groove. Oh, that is perfect. Seriously. Check this bit out. Isn't it a real beauty? Okay, this should be enough. So let's lower the bit. So the first one, as usual, we do the easy one. It goes all the way through, doesn't require any stop blocks. And this time I'm going to try the automotive tape inside the groove as well, to see if we can save ourselves from cleanup job. Now we put the mortise over the bit. Wow! It looks like using the tape is so much better for the edges. Look at that. There's almost no tear out. The cleanup is very easy. Okay, the next step is to install the dovetailing bit. We already made a groove 1 inch wide, so that the dovetailing bit only has to cut these little triangles, so it won't be struggling. So I think we can do it in one go. And let's have a look. I hope you can see it. So let's try to assemble it now. Sliding dovetail with the shoulder, going into the middle board. So we want it to move freely when the seasons change. And now the final board also has to go in. Okay, there we go. Look at that, what a satisfaction. Everything is going in, everything is coming together now. So this stretcher will move I will need to trim it slightly, and it will go inside the 4 by 4 inches legs. Wow, this is very, very satisfactory. Just look at that. This is just beautiful. And because the stretchers are not a tight fit, it allows slight movement of the boards, so I can make them flush with each other during the glue up. Okay. It's really on the money. It's perfectly square. It's really perfect. Done. This is really cool. Look at that. That was a really deep cut. As you could see, this bit is simply unbelievable. So look at that. You can see how deep is that. So this is the tabletop. The stretcher is under the tabletop, and it will be going into the leg this way. I will chisel out the corners. To allow movement of the wood, I will glue only one side of the stretcher to the leg, and the other side will be moving freely in and out of the leg. This will allow the top to contract and expand. So the next step will be squaring these corners. Time to dry fit everything. So this recess will embrace the stretcher, and the tenon will go into the tabletop. Okay. So everything is fitting perfectly. You know, there is no perfection in the world, but it's fitting very nicely. So now I will drill the hole. Okay. Okay, cool. Okay, now I'm going to prepare the clamps, which I made, and you can watch them in the other video. I believe these are the ultimate clamps because they apply pressure from the top and bottom and from the sides. So now I am twisting the handle to roughly adjust the clamp. I will leave it here. You can have a look around in which conditions I'm going to perform the glue up. Boards are split, So I'm going to start applying glue. Okay, time to close it before it's too late. Okay, so far so good. Okay. Okay, we are getting good squeeze out. Okay, I have a wet sponge here. And let's remove that squeeze out before it's dry, so it's easy. You can see how flush we are. It's a good sign. There is one thing I want to show you. We want to make sure that the stretchers can move. Now I'm going to flip it around. Mission successful. This wet cloth, which cleans the glue up, squeeze out, gives you the idea how the table top will look like. It's starting to pop out. Okay, so now I'm going to drill the holes in the tenon. So when I cut the slot in the tenons to allow me driving the wedges in, the wedges driven into the slot wouldn't split the material any further than the end hole. So okay, I'm taping the edges with the duct tape so that the epoxy wouldn't stick. Okay, everything is good. So we have this corner and this corner sealed, as we want the stretchers to be able to move, and these corners don't need to be sealed this way because the stretcher will be glued on this side. The walls of the tenon. Now I'm going to drive some wedges. Gluing the tabletops with the epoxy, especially the joinery, is my new game. Okay, time to remove the epoxy. I'm removing the bulk of it with the smoothing plane. So I have okay, I'm going to turn off the camera and turn it back on when we are getting closer. I'm going to waterproof the feet of my working desk with the epoxy as well. Okay, and this is the best moment of every wood project when you can apply finish to it. I just sanded it with 240 grit, and this will be my final. And my favorite finish for custom furniture is the boiled linseed oil. It not only makes the wood look great, but also makes it semi-waterproof. If you apply 3 to 4 coats and let them cure for a month, that actually you can consider the wood almost truly waterproof. Just look at that. I'm using the pure boiled linseed oil, which is not sent with the mineral spirits. I like the smell of it, and I like the natural factor. It's actually safe for your hands, and it just feels great on the surface of the wood. Wow, look at the color of these posts. Now I will apply boiled linseed oil to the bottom. Even though this is the bottom, it still looks gorgeous. The second coat will be in 3-4 days. So I'm just going to pour it